Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously fascinating case study on corporate growth. We're going to look at how a high-growth fintech COO completely, and I mean absolutely completely, transformed her scaling strategy right before a massive private equity injection. If you've ever felt the growing pains of a rapidly expanding company, you already know that what gets you to your first big milestone is almost never what gets you to the next. So let's break down exactly how to navigate that crucial transition. So, is your leadership style actually blocking your company's scale? I know, it's a pretty tough pill to swallow, but we're exploring a scenario today that plagues, honestly, so many brilliant founders and product leaders. It's that feeling of being totally trapped in the weeds when your company desperately needs you flying at 30,000 feet. It's an incredibly common paradox, right? The exact same skills that made you successful in the first place, your insane attention to detail, your hands-on problem solving, can suddenly become the massive roadblock that stops your entire organization from growing. Let's see how this exact thing played out in our fintech case study. All right, Section 1, the scaling bottleneck. So our subject here was a highly capable COO who was operating in this super heavily fragmented, atomized market. The pressure to adapt was just relentless. But, and here's the devastating irony of it all, she had incredibly deep technical expertise, yet her team was completely paralyzed without her daily intervention. Think about that. When your team can't make a move without your personal sign-off on every minor feature, well, you aren't really leading an organization anymore. You're basically just the most overworked employee in it. This really hits the nail on the head regarding the core conflict she faced. On one hand, the company was completely stuck in tactical feature delivery. We're talking micromanagement, a highly dependent team, daily interventions, the whole shebang. But to actually scale, they desperately needed high-level strategic alignment. That requires strategic mastery and, crucially, a fully autonomous team. That massive gap between those two states, that is exactly what was choking the company's growth. And to make matters worse, there was literally a ticking clock. The company was anticipating a major liquidity event. Specifically, a very prominent private equity fund was getting ready to enter the cap table. Now, as you might know, when institutional investors show up, they scrutinize your operational maturity big time. A business that's entirely reliant on just one single executive for daily operations, that's a huge red flag for PE firms. So she had to fix this structural flaw, and she had to do it fast before the scrutiny began. Which brings us to Section 2, the diagnostic blueprint. Recognizing the massive threat to this impending deal, the COO took some really decisive action. She engaged diagnostic services for a complete, exhaustive 360-degree organizational review, and this diagnostic blueprint essentially boiled down to three crucial steps. First up, identify the operational bottlenecks. Second, map out her own leadership strengths and weaknesses, which, let's be real, requires an immense amount of self-awareness. And third, elevate the entire product function so it actually meets those rigorous investor standards. It wasn't just a consultation, it was a comprehensive blueprint to completely overhaul the organization from the inside out. So all of this intense diagnostic work produced one absolutely crucial outcome: true product governance. What does that actually mean? Well, basically it means implementing structured frameworks to empower highly autonomous, decentralized product teams, while also establishing really robust, future-proof succession plans. By putting these guardrails in place, the COO sparked a structural evolution that finally, once and for all, removed her as the primary bottleneck. She essentially gave her team the exact tools they needed to make decisions on their own. And this wasn't just a corporate victory, it was a huge personal win for the COO as well. By building these autonomous teams and finally letting go of the tactical weeds, she immediately elevated her own strategic relevance within the executive suite. She was able to align product development directly with corporate financial performance. She was finally flying at the 30,000-foot level, actually steering the ship toward profitability rather than just sitting in the engine room all day. Moving on to Section 3, Commercial and Enterprise ROI. So, what does this all mean for the bottom line? How did this structural transformation actually translate into tangible business outcomes? Well, the results were pretty cascading. With an empowered team executing a crystal-clear roadmap, the company completely shifted to high-margin velocity. Because the team was no longer waiting around on the COO for every little decision, they unlocked significant capital efficiency, they boosted liquidity, and they stabilized the entire enterprise. They finally started operating like a well-oiled machine. But the benefits weren't just internal. This newfound operational agility meant they could finally go on the offensive. Instead of just barely surviving in that crowded, fragmented fintech ecosystem, they actively captured market share. They successfully executed cross-selling strategies across totally distinct business lines. It turns out, when your product team is actually decentralized and autonomous, they can iterate and respond to market demands without all that friction slowing them down. I think the ultimate victory for this COO is best summed up by a quote directly from the case study itself. The product organization shifted toward high-margin velocity, ensuring the company's tech stack and roadmap were ready for intense investor scrutiny. That is the real game changer here. With her eye firmly on that upcoming exit or PE injection, she completely transformed their operational posture. So when that private equity firm finally looked under the hood, they didn't find a fragile system hanging by a thread on one exhausted leader. They found a scalable, robust tech stack that was absolutely ready for prime time. Which leads us to a final, pretty vital question for your own corporate growth. If your executive team is preparing for a liquidity event right now, could a structured diagnostic session accelerate your scale? The lesson here is loud and clear. What got you here probably won't get you there. Sometimes you just have to systematically identify how your own leadership might be getting in the way and proactively build the governance to fix it. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this framework gives you something powerful to think about before your next big growth phase.